Good evening, I'm John Marshall. If you're new to the channel, please remember to like and subscribe. Go ahead and smack that bell to be notified of future upcoming podcasts. Before I introduce tonight's guest, I would like to share with you a compilation showcasing Scott Hitchcock's career. Watch this. Absolutely no introduction. However, he did insist that I do introduce him. He is known as a jack of all trades and the master of fun. I simply know him as my friend. Please welcome the one and only Scott Hitchcock. Scott, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much.
So you were born in Winchester, Virginia.
No, I was born in upstate New York, actually.
Oh, okay, my bad. Well, I guess that brings me to my first question. So, at what age were you when you first realized that you wanted to be an entertainer or a magician?
This reminds me of an old interview I saw with Morgan Freeman, where they asked him, what got you into acting? And his response was, I was born. And not that I was born into a magic family, but I had this desire to become a performer and wanted to be in drama clubs and all these sorts of things. And my family I kept on getting uprooted while I was growing up, and ended up missing out on being able to join drama clubs and such. And then I learned that eventually, when I was in third grade was when I first dabbled in magic, and did magic for show and tell, and did magic and juggling. And my juggling back then was horrible. It was two balls, and if I wanted to like really impress him, I would throw it really high and stuff like that. But when I was in seventh grade, that was when we moved from Binghamton, New York, to Poughkeepsie, New York, because my father was with IBM, which stands for I've Been Moved. And
never heard that.
Yeah, it's Big Blue, as you know, the not the International Brotherhood of Magicians, but the computer company. And I ended up learning some different magic tricks and realized that I didn't have to wait for a show to come up. I can perform at any moment at the drop of a hat. And then so I can get that performance desire. I was able to do those things. And then when I was 14 years old, after having been kicked out of Boy Scout camp, there was this guy who was doing a show at the bottom of the hill that I was living on, and named Steve Johnson. He was doing Steve Johnson's Magic Variety Show. And I rode my California Mongoose bike down there. I was a very big freestyle BMX freestyle kid, and doing all sorts of trick riding and stuff like that. And I wasn't a flyer. I was a groundwork, so I could walk all over my bike, and I would sit on my handlebars watching the show. So I'd be balancing on the wheel, but sitting on the handlebar and watching the show. But I had a nice elevated seat. But at the end of the show, I came up to the guy. I was like, "Hey, mister, I'm interested in magic. What do you recommend?" And he gave me his business card with the address of a local magic dealer, and also the name of Mark Wilson's Complete Course in Magic. And I tried looking that up, but it was out of print at the time. This was 1986. And so tried tracking it down, couldn't get it. But the next year, Steve Johnson's Magic Variety Show came to town again. Performed at the same park. It was a regular gig that he did. Went down there and happened to come across him, and I was like, "Hey, mister, it's me again." And we clicked a little bit more. And then like a week later, he was performing at an IBM Family Day. And as we were arriving, I was like, "Oh, that's that guy who was doing the show." And so I spent basically my whole day with him at his show. So in between shows and resetting and stuff like that. And he had actual juggling clubs, because I had taught myself how to juggle using rocks from my driveway. Because originally all I knew was the 2-ball pattern like this with a shower. I didn't know the regular juggling sort of thing, but there was a video that I had seen of someone, I think it was for a video that you could buy on how to juggle. And then I saw the braiding sort of pattern, which I now know is the cascade. Right. And so I was like, okay, I kind of get that. And I taught myself with rocks from my driveway, because they had these big rocks, and used rocks to learn the classic pattern of juggling. And
the infinity.
Yeah. And when you train yourself using rocks, you learn quickly how to not suck.
But isn't that a process, dropping them? I mean, that's
well, dropping them or getting hit by them. So you learn quickly when the penalty of a bad throw or a bad catch is getting hit with rocks.
Yes.
So that was so I learned pretty quickly how to do that. And then in 8th grade, when I got moved from one school, I got to have one semester at one of my schools, and then we moved again in the same general zone, but ended up shifting schools. But at least that school had a drama club that I was able to get into my first show. Then the next year, drama clubs were killed due to fundings and finances and stuff like that. And so that was a bummer. Yeah. But that next year, I had just really gotten into the researching magic, because I was a library helper, and so I would just dig through every book in the library on magic, and would just swallow them all. And that was what really sort of got my thing. And then this guy is doing a show at the bottom of the hill, and it's like, hey, I'm really interested in magic. That's what I've been totally zoning into. And then that's how things came along. And then after that that day that we had spent the entire day together, my parents are like, hey, we're gonna go. And Steve was like, yeah, I've got to go meet Kevin McCurdy at the Haunted Mansion. I was like, you're going to go to the Haunted Mansion? I was like, I'd love to go. It's like, is it okay if he takes me over to the Haunted Mansion and he'll drive me home? And that was how I got introduced to the Kevin McCurdy's Haunted Mansion, which I've sent you some things showing you that basically between magic and haunted mansions, that has encompassed so much of my life.
The Terror in the Mine Shaft as well, right?
Yes, that was the most recent haunt that I've been involved with. This last October.
I saw the video on that. It looked really good.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Yeah, we did in Las Vegas. There was this last October. There was Terror in the Mine Shaft, and I was brought in as the proprietor of the mine shaft, Dusty Nuggets. And you'll probably put up a picture of him right over there.
Everybody gather round. For now we venture underground. You'll gasp. You'll scream. You'll bleed. You'll cry. I hope you come. Prepare to die.
So you can see what he looked like. And my wife did all the makeup for me, and actually did all the makeup on everyone in the production. So that was she filled it like on the video. Everyone who's in there, that's all made up. They were all done by my wife.
It was fascinating to see Murray in that promo as well. That was kind of cool. He looks familiar, and he still looks good. That darn guy.
Yeah,
it's keeping himself relevant, of course. So, man, I'm almost afraid to ask what you do for fun.
I've been lucky in the fact that fun has been my life. You know,
and that's a good thing. So you also attended Tannen's Magic Camp, is that correct?
Yes, in 1989 and 1990, I attended Tannen's Magic Camp, and it was originally from ages 11 to 18, and I attended when I was 17 and 18. And in my final year, I actually received the Camper of the Year award, which is referred to as the award to the student who exemplifies the spirit of magic. And I still have the trophy upstairs.
Nice.
It's one of those things that I still hold on to. It's just it's a dear thing. And I asked them after I went up to the director of the camp, and I said, you know, I would love to come back next year because I still feel that I have so much more to learn, and it would be I put the plead out there.
Yeah.
And then I saw in the Tannen's Magic manuscript when the next issue, or when the issue that advertised Tannen's Magic Camp came out for that year, I saw that they had advanced the age from 11 to 18 to 11 to 19. And I was like, yes. And then a couple of weeks later on, they actually gave me a call saying, oh, did you see the advertisement for the new camp? I was like, yes, thank you. I appreciate you doing that. I was like, they're like, yeah, we did that inspired by you, but you can't come back as a camper. I was like, my jaw dropped. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. But then the other shoe dropped, and they said, we want you as a counselor.
Nice.
And so I had a fantastic time. I loved, and I still go back whenever I can as a teacher at Tannen's Magic Camp.
Man, that must be fantastic.
Yeah.
Just the memories of that. So I met you back in 2005 and 2006 in Las Vegas, Nevada at Jeff McBride's house. And that was my first big hoo-ha into magic, and that was really late in life, but I'd already been performing for many years. uh I found you as a very fascinating person. You were very likable. You have a very warm charisma about you. You know where you stand when you talk to you, and you know you're not a false guy. You're a very stand-up person who has a very sincere love for what you do, and I consider you to be very entertaining. You are an entertainer to the hilt. Uh, let's go back a little bit. You also told me in one of your texts that in high school you used to get picked on a lot because you ran around wearing multiple watches and rubber bands, and I found that to be a fascinating lead. Tell us a little
Yeah.
bit more about that.
When I was one of my early things, I would wear lots of rubber bands because I would do rubber band magic. I learned different rubber band tricks, and I at the time I realized that because I would try reading people, and like I would perform different tricks, and like I would do a trick, and they're like, "Oh, hey, let me show you another trick," and then people are like, "Oh, okay," like, and then I would do a trick, and they're like, "Oh, nice trick," and then they'd want to go away, and like, "Wait, here's another one." It's like,
Oh,
okay, and it's just. But then I came up with a story, which so I was able to do all these tricks within the context, and it was a story about Houdini,
all right.
and that I sent you the video from the Magic Castle, which has
Yes.
that routine on there, and that was the routine that I came up with when I was in high school, and
Beautiful.
by doing that routine, I was able to basically sucker people in until they heard the end of the story, and originally it finished off with the crazy man's handcuffs, where the rubber band going through one another. But then I learned. I did finish with the levitation at the end. It was the rubber band through thumb that I saw in my first year at Tannen's Magic Camp. I saw that done there, and as soon as I saw it, I remembered the story of Houdini, because when I was in just a couple of years earlier, I had been reading every book I could on magic, and I read the story about Houdini getting locked around a pillar, and the guards at Scotland Yard saying, kind of walking away like, "We're going off to lunch," and it's like, "We got you locked up," and then they turn around and go in and walk away, and then on their shoulder, "I'll join you if you don't mind," and I was like, "Oh, that the thumb can be the pillar, and that'll be a perfect thing for the story." And so it was just a great thing that worked out.
So that was when I met Jeff McBride. How did you meet Jeff McBride, and how did that all come about?
Tannen's Magic Camp.
Oh, you got to be kidding me.
In 1990, he came there to lecture. That was actually the last time that he came over there to lecture. And he was doing his lecture, and after about 45 minutes or so, he said, "I've been talking long enough. Somebody show me a trick." And as Jeff refers to it, he's like, all you could hear was the sound of 100 buttholes clenching. Jeff McBride wanted me to show him a trick. And
I know that feeling, actually.
He said, everyone just like clenched up. And I'm in the back. I'm like, whoop. I took off some bands from my wrist, and I started doing crazy man handcuffs gestures. And then, so like up, like, "Here you go. You want to see a trick? Here, there you go." And he looks at me and goes, "You, come on up." And so I'm like, okay. So I come on up, and people had been rehearsing their competition acts. And so there was confetti and streamers all over the floor. And as I walk up, I look down, and I'm like, "Huh, looks like you performed here." So that was my first words to Jeff were snark, basically.
How dare you?
And then he was like, show me a trick. I'm like, seriously? He was like, yeah, show me a trick. And so for the audience of 125 people, 100 people that we had at Tannen's Magic Camp, the campers and counselors in the back, I then proceeded to do my Houdini rubber band routine for everybody. And so Jeff saw that routine, and normally he would have been doing a works in progress sort of thing of like, okay, here's what you can do on your stuff. But when I finished my routine, Jeff stopped and he said, that's what I want to talk to you guys about. And had me sit up with him for the remainder of his lecture and showed how the combination of magic and storytelling blended really works well. And so, but that was how I met Jeff McBride.
Jeff is definitely a very wonderful person. He did agree to do the podcast, and very cool. So Tannen's Magic Camp really opened a lot of doors for you. That's
oh yeah.
And man,
other people, I mean, like that's met David Blaine over there. He and I, we were teaching at the same time. Another one of the guys who came through Tannen's Magic Camp, Michael Carbonaro. So have you ever seen the Carbonaro effect?
Probably not, but I will after this.
Yes, it's wonderful stuff. Michael was one of my kids. I call him one of my kids. It's I don't even think we were in any classes together, or you know that I was teaching. But although he would have been in my rubber band workshop, because they generally have me teach rubber band workshop every summer, yeah. So it's but we've had a lot of great people come through Tannen's Magic Camp.
Well, you definitely do have the great dexterity, and I notice you're very comfortable when you're on stage. You know, like when you're working with your cane, your hand movements and everything are so hypnotizing and banded. You know, it's amazing. And you really,
It's
when I go up there, I'm a bundle of nerves. You just feel like you're in a comfortable pair of shoes.
I've become very comfortable in front of audiences, and it's just that's if I also I used to work at a movie theater. I was an usher at a movie theater, and usher, and
Amazing.
and behind the candy counters, sort of stuff. And back then was also when Fantasia came out, was re-released.
Okay.
And one of the things that I would do is I would like there was a little the door leading to the refreshment counter. There was a door that would close, and there was a little space underneath. Sometimes I would slip my foot out of my shoe, and so that way they just saw two shoes at the bottom of there. And then I would take a broom and I would put it on my foot, and then I would gesture at it, and then balancing it back and forth, and having it basically a dance. And I could see out of the corner of my eye when the person was getting closer. I would then grab the broom, slide my foot back into the shoe. They're like, "Oh, did you need something from the counter? Milk duds, sodas, anything?" And they're like, "What was going on with that broom?" I was like, "I was just nothing." It just fun stuff. And then I would also do the Mark Nathan Sisher, who was also Tannen's Magic Camp alumni. And he had this thing where going to on a movie theater floor, grabbing a piece of popcorn from the floor and just eating it. Not actually doing that. It's, you have a piece palmed and just reach down. So do it stuff like that, or do that. Or I would also I would grab a milk dud and squish it into the piece of popcorn. So I would go over and peel up this little thing, and then no one's watching, knowing that there is someone watching. And it was just to entertain myself. Just
get a reaction, a nudge. That's funny.
Yeah, just stupid little things just to entertain myself.
I think you should do a show on YouTube or something and just have it, practical jokes and stuff, your style. I think you could have a lot of fun with that because you have a knack for it.
It's once you see Michael Carbonero's show, he is the embodiment of all that sort of stuff. It's phenomenal. It's like I can't even touch upon what he's developed, and it's really great stuff. So I highly recommend seeing it. And for viewers at home, check out The Carbonero Effect. I believe it's on Netflix, and he's a fantastic magician, fantastic actor, and he blends all of those things. He's very, very personable, and it's great stuff.
I opened up our segment here with a video of you performing your cane routine, the Quain video. Tell me how you evolved to that.
My first one of my first magic meetings with the Society of American Magicians in Poughkeepsie, New York, that Steve Johnson drove me to. That was a regular thing. Steve Johnson, he would, because he lived in New York City, in Astoria, Queens, and he would drive up to what was his. He used to live in the general area, and so the Magic Club up there was the club where his heart was, and so he would bring me up to there, and we would regularly. Steve would take me out to Pizza Hut almost every night of the magic meeting, and went to the meetings there. And there was this guy named Bob Reinhardt, who was this old guy with a long white beard, when I met him, he was in his very later days, his last days of cognizance. And he had a cane with him. And at the time, I also wore a gray fedora because I wanted to be Harry Anderson. I loved the look of Harry Anderson. I loved the dapperness of Harry the Hat. And so I had this gray fedora that I would always wear to the club. And he took the hat from my head, and he took his cane, and he shoved the cane right through the center of my hat. As I tell people, that did not impress me. when you took the cane back out and there wasn't a hole inside, that impressed me. And Bob was the one who showed me the cane suspension. And
That was cool.
When Bob was a young, starving magician, he had a roommate who was a young, starving actor named Jimmy Stewart.
No,
Yes.
not Jimmy.
Yeah,
Well, that sounds incredible.
It was incredible. My brain is trying to figure out a Zuzu's pedal sort of joke, but I've got nothing on that. But also growing up, two of my sisters were in color guard. One of my sisters was a rifler, and my other sister was a flag spinner. And I was never allowed to touch any of their equipment. But we did have wiffle bats. I'm the youngest of 5 children. And so I would spin my wiffle bat around and all these sorts of things. Also, growing up, I was a Star Wars kid. And so
we have so much in common. Go on. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So sticks and lightsabers and spinning color guard flags and rifles and stuff like that. I would just try emulating that with any sort of stick that I could find. So I had those basic skills. And then Bob showed me the thing with the cane. And then years later on, when I became a performer, where I was actively doing shows and trying to find more material, originally I was like, okay, I've got this cane, and maybe I'll talk about my grandfather, who was an inventor, Richard C. Hitchcock, who I'll send you a photo and you'll put that up right over there. But my grandfather was someone who was very inspirational to me. But when I told my dad about this, my father's father, he said that his father was very overly proud and would refuse to walk with a cane, even when he kind of needed to. So it was like, yeah, a cane wouldn't work for a story about him. And so I was like, okay. So I ended up creating this routine that was an homage to Bob Reinhardt. And Bob was an ex-vaudevillian. So that was another thing. Is like he also did an act as the clumsy waiter. He would get booked into venues and just be this horrendous, waiter but entertaining.
Right.
And he also was. There's someone else who referred to Bob as Uncle Bob, who Bob had taught him this vaudeville gag about walking around with multiple legs. And so that young guy who called him Uncle Bob, Rudy Kobe.
Fascinating.
So the guy who taught me the cane, and the cane has become a whole thing, was the same guy who taught Rudy Kobe about legs. And Rudy's taken, that a whole.
He's amazing. That's an amazing subject all on its own. Absolutely.
Yes. And so I took the different skills that I had developed with the cane, and originally had this monologue routine about the cane, talking about Bob and these things. And it's like, over the years, Bob has shared with me all sorts of magic stories and sleight of hand. And right now I'd like to share some of the magic Bob has shared with me with all of you. And then I would go into this routine. And then when I started working at Caesar's Palace, at Caesar's Magical Empire, doing these pieces, Darren Romeo, also from Tannen's Magic Camp, asked me specifically to do the cane piece there. And I was like, okay. Well, the cane piece has always been a monologue piece. It was like, well, just work on it. It's a good piece of magic. It was like, all right. So I got into incorporating it in other styles. And I had a wizard's robe, and I would have it tucked underneath my cloak. And on occasions, I would, if I saw someone, because I knew canes, and I would see someone in the audience with a cane, I was like, I can do my stuff with that. And so I would try to borrow their cane, and I would actually take out my cane, hand them my cane, and then use their cane, do my little cane sequence with a borrowed cane.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And then that was a lot of fun. So I just, over the years, I've just added new tricks and stuff like that. Bob used to do, when we would go to Denny's after the magic meetings, he would always do this thing with a butter knife, where he would take a butter knife and it would stick to his fingertips. You know that trick?
I do actually.
Did you recognize that in my cane routine?
Yeah, but I can't figure that one out for the life of me.
It's the same trick.
Wow.
I modified it to work with a cane.
That's amazing.
And so that one where I put tips of my fingers, where I go
yes.
like this and there, and I do that body bend, and that's one of the things that
my favorite was the suspension from above, and then you move the other hand away, and you totally do a 360 with, with each effect, demonstrating the simplicity and the beauty of it. And it's just it's a beautiful piece. I highly commend you on that. It's a beautiful piece of work. When did you do that one? When did you guys film that one?
That was filmed in July of 2019.
So before the pandemic hit and everything shut down. Yeah, the good old days.
Yeah, so that was basically my last creation. And that performance, that video that you guys just saw, was the premiere performance of that routine.
Beautiful.
In fact, it wasn't until it was during the tech of that. Originally, I was just going to come out, just walking out, and then, do my general things. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. I had never done the kickflip in front of an audience ever. I played around with it just while doodling around with things. But then while I was doing the thing, I was like, I wonder if that kickflip would help, just give a little extra something. And so that first thing that I do, where I step forward, and for me it's a 1, 2, 3 kick, flip, back catch. That's just been something that I've always. Well, that was the first time that was performed in front of an audience, and I was really happy that I caught it.
Yeah. And a great reaction to it too. Very well received.
The Tannen's Magic Camp, audiences, they love. It's a very very warm crowd.
Well,
because
definitely.
everyone in that crowd is a magician. So.
I gotcha. Definitely. There's a fellowship about that, of course, to us magicians who have had the opportunity to participate in those kind of things. You definitely have a great story to tell. That is so amazing, sir. Your beard reminds me of a wonderful man I met at McBride's, the Dean of Magic, who is no longer with us, the warm and wonderful Eugene Burger. How did you meet Eugene, and what was your relationship with him?
I met him. Okay, so I met Jeff in the summer of 1990. Then that next year, he was doing a show around my general area. And I went and saw him at that show, and went up to him afterward, and I was like, hey, I met you at Tannen's Magic Camp. He's like, I remember you. And he's like, I've got this thing that I'm starting to put together, and I think you'd be perfect for it. And he was creating this thing called Mystery School. And the original Mystery School, there was only 21 attendants. It was invitation only. And among them, so it was me and whole bunch of other people. I met all sorts of great people at the original Mystery School, and Eugene was the other primary teacher there, and so that was how I met Gene, was at Mystery School.
He had such a unique voice. When I read his books and hear his narrations in my head, it's always in his warm, gruffy voice. And it's he'll always live through his literature and in his remembrance of his wonderful voice.
When I was growing my Eugene passed in 2017. I believe it was August 8th, 2017. Mm-hmm. And when at the time I was fully shaved, I mean facially shaved, but also shaved headed. I looked like Lex Luthor or Professor Xavier.
It's Kojak.
Yes. Who loves you, baby?
Who loves you, baby?
And the then when I decided that I'm gonna grow a beard and grow my hair out, I decided to let the beard grow, and I wanted to get it to the length. Initially, a bit of it was a tribute to Eugene, especially since it was coming in all white, and I was like, sure, people are like, oh, you should color it. I was like, no, I'm not afraid of being who I am. I've earned every single one of these white hairs.
There you go.
And there was this thing, because I spent hours upon hours, watching Eugene lecture, talking at different conventions and at the Mystery School and all sorts of different events. He came to my house, and I hosted him for a lecture that he did. So I'd call up people and invite them in. He would
fascinating.
It was a wonderful time. But there's this thing that I referred to as the Eugene wiggle, which was when he'd be talking, he'd be his voice is very low down, and I'd be watching his beard from the side, and just the way that his beard would wiggle. I'd say, looking and thinking, is that what we want our magic to be about? No. And that wiggle that it would do, I was like, I want my beard long enough so where it can do the Eugene wiggle. And in the Kane video, it wasn't up to that point yet. It couldn't do the wiggle. It would sway a little bit, but it wasn't. It didn't have a life of its own yet. And then I actually, right before the pandemic, I had moved from Vegas to Winchester, Virginia, where my parents had retired to, because they're hitting their 80s, and to help them out with anything they might need. I was willing to step away from the performance and help my parents out with whatever they needed. And then I was like, want my beard to grow out. So growing the beard out, and it continues to. I got booked in as for a Harry Potter luncheon, and they wanted me to be Dumbledore. And I'd gotten things to extend my beard, so that it would get a good length to it. And but then I realized that, before that even happened, it got canceled because of COVID. And so that got canceled, and then they rescheduled it, and like, okay, well, we've got it for this point. And then I was like, oh, I'll do it for that one. And then that got canceled as well. And then it became full shutdown of stuff. And so I stopped doing that, but continued growing my beard.
Right.
Then got into a whole new sort of thing as an artistic outlet. Got introduced to the beard competition world, because I had looked at different things on how to maintain my mustache, my mustache and my beard. Because originally I started off with just a goatee, and then I was doing this thing, and it was like, how do I take care of the goatee? And I wanted to get my to be able to do a little bit of a handlebar mustache, and
It's an interesting look for you, my friend.
it's a little bit of work, but it's worthwhile. It's a lot of fun. It's also
Unique, just like you.
absolutely, and it gets me recognized. It does get attention, like the sort that I used to with performing magic and performing tricks. Now just walking into a place when I don't have to be masked, if they see this, I get a lot of whoa, just without really needing to do anything. I don't have to do any tricks. I don't have to say any witty performance pieces. Just being there.
Yeah.
In fact, at one of my old jobs, they would just call me Merlin. I'm like, I'll accept that.
Indeed.
I'll do that. Yeah, and so it's just a lot of fun. In fact, I'm just thinking about some of the verbal things that I've come up with throughout the years that I would still utilize. I still have in my head. Like there's a magic speech that I wrote when I was 17 that I still use to this day. And that is, magic is simply the performance of the impossible, making the preposterous passable. And this profession ranges from people parading prestidigitation at prestigious parties to panhandlers pickpocketing the prospective pigeons for later trick. But for me, the main motive behind mystifying the masses is the merriment made, not the money, although the amusement makes moolah. Any questions? Just a very handy little thing.
Beautiful.
And when I was growing up, when I was much younger, I used to have a stutter and a lisp. And those are two things those are two things that I've overcome. And I loved Danny Kaye, watching him and all of his sorts of things, because the way he would dance around with words was just phenomenal and inspirational. And one of the things I got, and when I moved from Vegas to Winchester, my parents had all these old albums, and one of them was this album that they had bought for me for helping me work on my speech, and it was all these tongue twisters. And so I still have that and still remember the cover, and it was just a wonderful thing.
That's impressive. I haven't retained anything from my childhood. It all got lost in translation somewhere. All I've got is the memories of those things. But
yeah. I've even had I had one of my friends ask if they could use my magic speech for this one show that they were doing, and because she knew that speech. Well, she heard it a million times.
Right.
But so she knew it because she's got a very, very good memory. Joan Dukore was doing a show, I believe it was in Chicago, and she asked to do the magic speech. And I believe you're going to be having her on soon.
Yes, very soon. Yes. All she's got to do is give me a time.
And she'll be able to recite that poem for you, I'm sure.
Wow. Speaking of Joan Dukore, I also know for a fact that you are an incredible dancer. Is that something that you self-taught, that I want to learn to dance and did it? And
pretty much because before I moved to Vegas, I really did not dance. And although when I was in high school, like at school dances and stuff like that, I did not dance. Like not violently did not dance, but I just kind of refused to dance because I would see some people who danced really well, and I admired them. And I would see these other people who totally did not know how to dance and who looked, in my mind, ridiculous. And I never wanted to be that person who looked ridiculous. And like if I was given choreography, I can do it. Like in drama club, we did 42nd Street, and I was cast as Billy Lawler. And so I learned how to tap dance. And so there are certain tap dance things that I can do because I was taught the choreography. I know what to do. And then when I did in 1994, we rehearsed in 1994, but we did McBride is Real Magic at the Showboat Casino in Atlantic City. And that was we opened on Friday, January 13th, and closed on Sunday, April 1st.
Oh,
we
explosive run.
We opened on Friday the 13th. We closed on April Fool's Day. So, and it was on the morning of the packing up. So on April 2nd, when I heard that interview with Morgan Freeman, where they asked him, what got you into acting? And where he said, I was born. I remembered specifically, it's, I said, there are certain dates that I can just specifically remember. I've just had these anchor points and times. But it was just a wonderful, wonderful experience.
Beautiful.
But with doing that show, we were choreographed by Lynn Taylor Corbett, who choreographed Footloose. And she,
great movie.
They were auditioning dancers and different people. Jeff had me in as his assistant, and because he had me work with him on different sorts of shows as like an opening act, an MC. And then there'd be times where they would learn that I won't get into those things, but learn that I had other skills as well. But he was like, I'm going to be doing the show in Atlantic City. I want you to be my assistant. And so Lynn's trying to put this together and get a dancer to assist. And so I'm also going to be there on stage. And so if I can dance as well, dance with them, or work in cooperation with the person, or dancing with Jeff as well, then. And Lynn, she was like, okay, well, I'll put some music on and just dance for a bit. I'm like, I don't really dance. And then she was like, okay. And so she did a series of movements where she would just start moving around the dance floor and asked me to just copy her. And so I would be right behind her and I would just follow whatever she was doing. She was like, okay, you're not a dancer, but you're an excellent mimic. And so she learned that whatever she would show me, I could do.
Right.
It's just, I just didn't have the training to do all those sorts of things. Whereas Joan is a trained dancer. She's a trained ballerina. She had, studied ballet since she was a kid. But when I moved to Vegas, that was when the swing scene was starting to come back up again. So right around 1998, someone had brought me out to a place and had heard big band music, loved it, and then they had a beginner swing dance lesson. So I learned the basic swing dance moves. What I learned later on was East Coast swing.
Little zoot suit action.
Yes. And I've actually I've done promotional dancing for Cherry Poppin' Daddies, for Big Bad Voodoo Daddy, Indigo Swing, all these different swing bands, and it's been a great time, and helped create the Las Vegas Swing Kids, and we've done we do different gigs about in town, so in between my magic gigs, so it was just a wonderful time. And so when Jeff asked me to do a middle part in his show that he was going to be doing at Magicopolis Theater.
Okay.
I
Steve
was like,
Spill?
okay, I'll put together something blending magic and swing dance, and so I'll do it. And my girlfriend at the time, Joan, we had Tobias. Tobias directed it, and he was able to. Because typically, when I'd seen magicians with assistants, I would often refer to them like the assistant isn't much of a person. It's just like help, a servant.
Right. A visual servant. Yes.
Right. And it was like that wasn't what I wanted. I wanted someone who Joan and I on stage, we were partners. We were both strong characters on there. That's why it was billed as Scott Hitchcock and Joan Dukore's Magic Feats.
Right.
And
well, you both brought definitely different styles and different things into that routine. I loved the newspaper tear and how that was a nice climax for that.
that was something. The climax of that was for me. It was driven by the music, because we knew we were doing it to the Pink Panther theme. Because we're looking for music that would be working for it. And then it had enough texture throughout the whole piece. And then came up with all the different sequences throughout it. And then we're looking for something. I was like, that last note in there, it's asking for something. That fun, boom, 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 wham.
Yeah.
I was like, something needs to happen there. Either a gag or something, and it was like
something visual.
Yeah. And so the final reveal of the paper, so, the single piece to paper, I was just like, that's it. And Greg Fruin hated that.
What?
It made no sense to him.
Well, so it was actually shaped like a heart. If you could, that piece could have opened up to be a heart, that would have been an even better climax on top of a climax, which, ta-da, and done. I mean, yeah. Well, what do I know? Doggone it. Go ahead.
But that was a one of those things that I don't know. I loved that piece. I think I feel that the Torn or Restored Paper was of the pieces that Magic Feats did. That was our best piece. That was our strongest piece. Admittedly, it was taking a single effect and stringing it out very long, but that's fine, because I felt it was entertaining throughout.
Absolutely. I mean, I've seen many torn and restored newspaper tricks in my lifetime as a magician, and I've appreciated many as well. But I got to say that was a nice and beautiful addition to that family of moves, but so cleanly done.
There were a couple of modifications that we had to do in order to make all the different things happen.
The piece and everything fit so beautiful. Yeah. Man, like I told you on the phone the other day, what I wouldn't give to live a week in your life. That would be an action-packed, exciting trip. I could see that you are a very focused performer, and what you do and what you add is something very special to your brand. Trying to touch on as many of these subjects as we can. You also had a wonderful opportunity to meet Denny Hainey, didn't you?
Yes, I did. In fact,
tell me a little bit about Denny. Yes,
the dancing cane. Actually, the first Steve Johnson, the magician who I worked with early on, he always told me Denny was his favorite magician. And he's like, if you ever have a chance to see Denny Hainey, he's the one to check out. And when I was a junior in high school, I got booked performing at an IBM Employee Appreciation Day, where they brought in tons of magicians working this thing and doing 3 hours of walk around per set. And I was asked, I was like, hey, they've got a morning shift, an afternoon shift, and an evening shift doing these 3 hour shifts. Would you like one of them? And I was like, yes. And it was like $100 an hour. And to which, yeah, and for me at the time, I was like, that's fantastic. And he was like, well, which shift would you like? I was like, all of them.
I don't want to go home again.
Yeah. So so by doing that one day of work, it was a whole bunch of work, a lot of work, but I got to work with all sorts of great magicians. I got to work with Joe Devlin,
Wow.
George Schindler, Phil
Wow.
Clipper, just wonderful people that, we were all on the same team entertaining this crowd. And one of the things that I had in my case for the longest time, a bit of advice that George Schindler had given to me, which was, he was like, Scott, you're really good, but you need to slow down. Because I was such a young, excited person. I would just
high paced, yes.
And so in my performance case, I had a printout that said, Scott, slow down, George Schindler. And that was a thing that kept with me for a long time. And
that's great advice.
And then Joe Devlin's then assistant, Kim, Joe would be doing all the walk around, but she would tell me, she was like, okay, watch how he's approaching the table. See how he's getting to engage the people first. Now how he's starting to work the trick in. That's what we want to do. And so she would point out some of these different things. And it was like, okay, so I had all these lessons I could see from these people who were working. And it was a really good practical experience from working magicians. And at one of the other stage areas, they had all sorts of performers. There was Kamar the Magician, who you may have seen on Letterman years ago, as Letterman would call him, Kamar the Discount Magician.
Oh no!
But Denny and Lee were also doing a show on one of the stages, and I was told, Denny and Lee, Denny Hainey, that's who you want to go and see. And I wasn't able to actually see him because I was busy working, but I knew that Denny and Lee were working the same gig, and I was just like, oh, that was a big thing. But then years later, I didn't get to meet him for a long time. But then there are times where I can't remember when the first time that I met Denny actually was, but when doing the dance, when putting together the Magic Feats routine, wanted to do a dancing cane, and Jeff told me that the best cane was the Creekmore dancing cane, and the dealer who you can get it from is Denny. And so I called up Denny and got to connect with him on that. And then years later, whenever we were in the general area, we would go over to Denny's place and got to meet Denny in person and meet his pig Babe. And that was a great time. And then in 2001, I think it was, Denny expanded to Las Vegas and had a magic shop in Las Vegas, the Denny and Lee Magic Shop. And I was asked to be in there. And they had lots of magic shops in Vegas, like the Houdini's magic shops. There was Magic Masters, which was a very nice, a really high-grade magic shop. But I really didn't want to be a magic shop employee. But when it came time for Denny's shop, and they asked her, like, would you be able to help out with the shop? I was like, for Denny, yes. For other people, it's like, no. But for, a certain caliber level, yes, I'll do that.
Fascinating.
Yeah, but that's so.
David Tillman, who will be on my show tomorrow, he is a magician, and Denny Hainey was one of his mentors. And he'll be fascinated to hear, to see this part of the podcast with you, because I'm sure he misses Denny so much. Denny was a unique individual. I met him, McBride's, I want to say 2006. And never dreamed that I would never get a chance to see him again. But he was such a comical little man with the most unique personality you'd ever meet in your life. I'm so jealous that I'm not jealous, but I'm definitely very taken back by your knowledge and the wonderful magicians that you've had the opportunity to meet. What a rare opportunity that is, my friend.
Yeah, I'm very aware of what I've been able to encounter and accomplish, and the friendships that I've made, and the fact so many of the people who were idols of mine are now just friends. So like Lance Burton was a big person. It's like, Lance Burton is like the ultimate sort of performer and stuff, and now he's a buddy. It's
wonderful.
Yeah,
absolutely wonderful. Yes, I remember meeting Lance back in those days too, and that is another wonderful individual that I have a lot of respect for. So also, because he's going to be on the show in the future here, and has agreed to it, I want to touch on Steve Spilled Beans. How did you meet Steve?
I met Steve working Magicopolis, the Magicopolis Theater in Santa Monica. In fact, we were living in the space up in the. There was a room that like led right to the stage area. That was where, when we did the month-long run at Magicopolis, that was where we lived, and so living on the right on the edge of the promenade. I can't remember if it was the 4th Street Promenade or 8th Street Promenade, but whichever it was. But the promenade of Santa Monica. I remember almost every night we'd go out and I would get buffalo wings, and that was just had such a fun time. It was a great experience.
Good times. Man, that's another place I'll never have the opportunity to perform, because Steve no longer owns Magicopolis, but I heard it's still in the family of the Magic Castle. So I don't know what the process of that is, but I'm fascinated to find out, because I that's definitely on my bucket list, performing at the Magic Castle, and at least performing at Magicopolis. I'm a cheap date. What can I say? Man, so have you written any books? Do you have any videos? Anything of any autobiographies? Because you should. You've lived such a fascinating life. I think that would be so wonderful, especially audiobooks, man, because I'd listen to your life over and over again.
Yeah, I don't have. I only ever put out one set of lecture notes, and those
which I own.
You've got.
Yes.
Yep. And just had some random things I was put together because I was asked to lecture at the Winter Carnival of Magic in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, And I was like, oh, so I'm going to be lecturing, so I better have lecture notes. And so threw those notes together, and all the illustrations in those notes I did myself, uh, having no idea how to do those sorts of things. But I would take a picture of something, and then in Corel Draw, I would basically trace the picture to, so they ended up looking like Richard Kaufman illustrations, with illustrations that I had seen in Richard Kaufman books.
Yes.
Which also, like in Harry Lorraine's Apocalypse, also had this similar sort of style. And I was also very pleased to have, I do have some of my work published in Apocalypse.
Oh, that's a great series.
Yeah,
man.
I was asked to do, it's like stuff that wasn't cards or coins, because they had so much of that stuff, and I had lots of rubber band stuff. And so,
well, you are good with coins too. I love your stack that you catch in mid-flight. I think that's that would be a different game for me. That would be like, well, where the hell did that all go? That would be me, you know.
And that stack that that one you're talking about is in the Monster Magician video.
Yes,
that's what opens that video, and that was shown to me. So Steve Johnson lived in Astoria, Queens, and he had a manager from Encore Performing Arts who lived in New York City. And then Fred ended up moving to Wappingers Falls, which is basically right around Poughkeepsie, and needed someone to work in his office. And it was only 2 miles away from my parents' house, where I was living at the time. And so initially, I didn't have a car, and so I would walk to the office, and I worked there for 4 years.
Wow.
As a secretary, basically, and taking calls and passing them over to Fred, who would do the bookings, and he would also regularly book Steve Johnson's Magic Variety Show, amongst other shows that he would book, and they're all generally for recreation centers, schools, libraries, and those sorts of venues. But they had all sorts of things. They had puppet shows, the fire safety show, Craig Babcock Mime, Richard Stillman, variety arts entertainer, mostly musical instruments. But among them was Steve Johnson's Magic Variety Show. And then they asked for Steve to create more expanded stuff. And so there became Steve Johnson's Magic Variety Show, the one-man show. And then there was the two-man juggling show, and the three-person illusion show. And so I was part of the juggling show and the illusion show. And since I worked in the office, anytime so that was my general job, but Fred was like, oh, by the way, you've got this day, you don't have to come in on this day because you've got a gig. So I never had to ask for, it's like, oh, I've got this gig coming up. It's like, since it was from the agency that booked it, of course I can get that time off. Otherwise,
Sure.
He wouldn't have booked it. If it was like, there were a couple of times where it would be in a situation where he needed me for the work, and he would see if the person could have the gig on a different day. I was like, that's a little bit tight. Is there any way that you can book that show on this next week? But yeah, that would work out nicer. And that way he was able to get me to do all the work he needed for him, and then also do the magic shows. So that was really nice. That was from when I graduated high school, I went pretty much right into that job, working at Encore Performing Arts. And the time that I had to stop that job was doing McBride is Real Magic at the Showboat, because that was a 3-month gig. And that was like, Fred, I can't work anymore. So I worked from 1990 to 1994 at that performing arts agency, which was a wonderful experience, but also I was able to use those experiences to book my own shows which financed me moving to Las Vegas. Because when Tobias moved out to Las Vegas, I saw this thing called Caesar's Magical Empire that was out there.
Yes.
And I was like, this place is fantastic. And I moved out there hoping that I might be able to get work there. If not, there was all sorts of other entertainment going on. There was entertainment over at Excalibur. There was all sorts of things. And nowadays, all that stuff has stopped. There no longer is an entertainment, all these random shows at Excalibur that got cut years ago. They had also different places had entertainment in their malls, which was like over at Planet Hollywood. They had some of that going on. It was like, I'm not interested in that. At the Venetian, they had that sort of stuff going on, but it was like, not so much. I did end up filling in for some of that work, and Joan and I worked there together for some things. And actually, it made me remember. It's like, it was a pleasure working with her again at the Venetian. It was a reminder of how well we did work together, even though we had broken up. It broke my heart. But it was
so there's still a really good friendship there because of the professional standpoint, of course.
Yeah.
That's so wonderful to hear, man. So before we wrap this up, we're running a little long, and I do appreciate it, man. I gotta have you back on the show because I feel like we've only cut halfway into this onion. And there's so many layers.
There was one question you said you wanted to ask me.
Well, I think you've almost answered it. And that question was, do you ever see yourself returning to magic?
But right now, I'm building my my new life because I now have a house in Virginia, or in West Virginia. It was cheaper than buying it in Virginia, so I was able to get more space for less money. And,
congratulations, sir.
Thank you. And out here with my new wife, we just got married on April 1st, and April 1st has been a great day for me because when I moved to Vegas, I pulled into town on April 1st, 1997. When I moved from Vegas to Virginia to my parents, I pulled into town April 1st, 2019. And then Jill and I got married on April 1st, 2022, or 2021.
You're just keeping it real, man. That's all I'm going to tell you. Man, it was so good to have you on the show. And
thanks for having me.
It was so good to see you.
And good seeing you as well.
I'm so touched and pleased to see that you're doing so good and you're healthy, and the mind is still actively cranking that wheel.
Yeah. And I still have that Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy t-shirt that you sent me.
Beautiful. I am so happy to hear that, dude. Yeah, those were good old days owning the video store. And I had a brief 2.5-year run opening a magic shop, which was not really surprising that it didn't make it. But I did, however, get a great deal on some great magic props. So great wealth of books that I'll probably never get through. But kind of like McBride's, I have a very impressive book collection and magic book collection. And of course, standing out among them all was 2 copies of Mark Wilson's Course in Magic. Scott, thank you so much.
You're very welcome. It's been a great time. Thanks for having me on, and I look forward to next time.
Excellent. You have a blessed day, my friend.
You as well.
Take care.
Come on, keep it going for Scott Hitchcock.